I just noticed in my last couple of live streams that there wasn't much of an attendance. So the fight that's coming up, the heavyweight dust-up, the heavyweight domestic British dust-up, Daniel Dubois and Joyce. Two British prospects slash borderline contenders for facing off against each other. Two of the sort of Britain's best of the, I want to say the young bunch. Joyce isn't young, but he is in that same category of heavyweights. So it'll be a good matchup. Anyway, what do I think about this fight? I think, well, obviously on paper and on just my opinion, it's good. Daniel is a good threat, boxes well, uses his jab well, has a good right hand, fairly decent rhythm and stuff like that, fairly okay mover, standard British kind of fighter, but he's not the most rigid in the world, and that must be said, that he's not most fluid, but he's not the most rigid either. He seems to have some sort of boxing there, and maybe it's the shorter amateur pedigree is why he's learning as a pro. He's been learning a lot on the job too. He's had, Richard Larty, where he had to come through fire, and he had a good domestic clash with Nathan Gorman in July of 2019. So, he's doing alright. He's only a young kid, 23. So, this is a good learning fight for him. He's going to have to come through some tough spells against a very seasoned guy who's been in the World Series of Boxing against Filip Hrgovic, Alexander Usyk, and that kind of thing. Daniel has pretty decent hand speed. He's definitely a good finisher. He seems to be disciplined and always got a good jab. So Joe's got great stamina and great chin. We see that he can stand and fight, he can stand and trade, and we saw him standing and fighting. But he can move too, Joe. Joe's pretty athletic for one of the bigger heavyweight fighters that we have today, and he punches fairly hard and he can punch explosively. There has been fights where he's done more of the David Hay style, and he's done it to pretty good effect. But he's under Ishmael Salas now, and Ishmael Salas has a good Cuban style of fighting where he works a lot in rhythm and all that kind of stuff. A lot of rhythm and tempo work, and about mechanically setting up punches. So there's good things on both sides, as we can imagine. Joe seems to be quite self-aware of his strengths and his weaknesses. He knows how to cultivate his strengths quite well. And as I've said previously, he's got a good wealth of experience. He did beat Filip Hrgovic in the World Series of Boxing. He done well in the Olympics. He came silver. So he has definitely a hell of a lot more of an amateur resume than Daniel himself has. Now, as a pro, the experience goes with Joe as well. Joe's fought Bryant Jennings in his debut. He fought Ian Lewison. He's fought Berman Stavern. And he's fought Ustinov as well. So, there's some decent good names there. He's being fast tracked a bit. I think that's good too. And I just hope that they're not trying to fast track Daniel too much. And I think Daniel should actually not jump into world title contention after this fight if he wins it. I think he should still try and get some credible names on the resume. For example, I don't know, like he has, for example, like a Janu, but he could maybe fight a couple more of the fringe world level guys or some of the top 15s contenders and really work his way up, because he's going to have to learn a lot regardless of if he blasts you out or not. He's not ready for Dillian Whytes and Alexander Povetkins and guys like that. If Joe wins, I think it's different for him. He has to, because of his age, and he has the pedigree to help him fast track himself much better than Daniel does. But Daniel's got time on his side, so if I was part of the Dubois team, even if I beat Joe, he beat Joe, yeah, I would definitely take my time with him and put him with some good guys as well. Put him with some guys where he's not going to be putting him out in 1 or 2 rounds. Because it's a marathon with Daniel, and he is going to probably do very well, we can imagine. He seems to have the right attitude. I think he's got the right attitude. I think Joe's very confident in his ability too. He wants to fight all the guys. And he will, I would say. He has fought Stavern and guys like that before. And Bryant Jennings. They're not the best guys in the world, but when you're only a handful of fights into your career, they're good scouts in your resume. So let's talk about Daniel's resume a bit more. Daniel hasn't had too bad of a resume himself. Yes, he's had his share of maybe knockover jobs, but he's had his share of sort of interesting matchups. Nathan Gorman, for example, was, we knew Nathan Gorman had hand speed and hand skills, and he was fast, and he is more sort of slick and coordinated. And yeah, we saw what happened there. We saw that he was able to clip Daniel with a couple of left hooks, so that's maybe a punch that he's susceptible to. That would be interesting. And that's interesting on that subject, that his promoter Frank Moore wanted him to fight a guy with a dangerous left hook, Dillian Whyte. That's just funny that he didn't sort of catch that on from the Gorman fight. But Dubois fought Kevin Johnson, the Kingpin. He fought Kevin Johnson, boxed him, and beat him. He didn't do as good as a job as Anthony Joshua or Martin Bacoli, but maybe he fights Martin Bacoli if he beats Joyce. That's the kind of opponent would be good. I'm kind of thinking out loud here, and I'm coming up with my own conclusions as I go ahead. So, where was I going with this? Was I going to talk about Joe? So Dubois, yeah, he's been in with January as well. Joseph Parker couldn't knock out. Louis Ortiz knocked him out. Nathan Gorman, as we saw, didn't knock him out either. So, Dubois not there to win a points decision. And that doesn't mean that he can't, or that he's going to come unstuck. But I mean it in the regards of, he's there to get the job done, and he's good at getting the job done. He can do it. He knows how to catch right hands by surprise down the midline and stuff. He's good at that. And Joe Joyce might leave himself open to that anyway. And one thing about Joe, with all due respect, his punches are different to Daniel's. His punches are different to a lot of different heavyweights, because he's got kind of a hammering style, if that makes sense. He's got a real hammering kind of style. He hammers punches, clubbing punches. He's like a George Foreman in his 20s, but it doesn't wind up, because George Foreman will wind himself up, and that's why Foreman maybe didn't have the stamina, whereas Joe does, because Joe's a bit relaxed, but Joe hammers the punches too. But he is more relaxed, and he's good stamina and chin. But Joe can do bits with his jab and that too. So he can't jab with Dubois. And he has probably, I know he's been the distance with Jennings and stuff, but you can have to imagine over the long stretch, Joe would do particularly well. And just to say now, if it goes to points, I know Joe wouldn't have amazing work rate, but he moves and he can box. So I'd have to favour Joe if it's going to a decision. If it's going to a stoppage, I would have to say Dubois has the more element of surprise with his attack. So if Joe's hurt, he'll go for it. Joe is more likely to sort of hammer you down, break you down, round by round. Whereas Dubois, he'll look for an opening. If he sees an opening, he'll not let you out of it. He will go. So, Dubois and Joyce, I'm going to say, go the distance. Joyce will get it. Joyce may be able to stop Dubois late, and he probably could use the left hook. But Dubois could catch him early doors. I find it difficult to pick a winner. Joyce, on paper, should probably win, right? Like, he's got everything going for him on paper. But just stylistically, I see him leaving his midline and his centre of his mass open for Dubois to possibly set up attacks. But having said that, Joyce is crafty enough, even with his weaknesses. It's kind of thudding hands and stuff. Even though he gets clipped, he can still find a way to win. He got countered by Burmans-Tavern, and Burmans-Tavern can counter well off the back foot, and he did counter well off the back foot, but Joyce was able to keep hammering him down. But then Dubois is a good mover, so is it sitting on the fence, or do I go with Dubois? I am biased towards Dubois. Reason being is because I like his style better. I like to watch his style. I like that style a little bit better. I'm might have to possibly sit in the fence for this one, which I really hate doing, and I really try not to do. I try to at least pick a winner, even if I'm not certain, just because it's my speculation. But I'm going to have to sit in the fence.